top 20. Top car managing editor Dion Skuman and fellow motoring scribe Jeremy Fall had a clean run so far in the top car Nissan hardbody and were mere seconds behind Piazza Musso and Tersteegen. Hannes Grobler and Richard Leek were in total command, but being chased hard by the opposition as they arrived at the rally-style D-control that was introduced to enable crews to bypass an impassable section of the route. Force and Griffiths were next to arrive at the D-control. Berthold and Harkus were the special vehicle category leaders in the adrenalized corporate entertainment bat, and the distant dust trails indicated that the rest weren't too far behind. Team Ford Racing pair Woolridge and Scholthammer were third in the production vehicle category as they entered the D-control area. So far, nothing untoward had happened to the leading group, but behind them, positions were changing all the time as crews got lost in unfamiliar terrain. Reineke and Houghton stormed into the D-control area in the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser and had Corbett and Moore in the Century Property Developments bat right on their tails. Corbett and Moore campaigned in Isuzu in Class D last year, but decided to return to the special vehicle ranks on this year's Toyota 1000 Desert Race. That race ended prematurely for them after the front suspension of the bat was destroyed in an encounter with a tree stump. The recontrol area was 8 kilometers down the tar road, and the 12-minute break would give crews a well-earned rest before the Battle of Leidenburg resumed. Hannes Grobler and Richard Leek had a 30-second lead over teammates Duncan Voss and Mike Griffith, with Gary Berthold and Brandon Harkus a further 16 seconds behind. Woolridge and Scholthammer were 62 seconds behind the leading Nissan. Reineke and Houghton were 2 minutes and 27 seconds behind the leading Nissan and 1 minute and 25 seconds adrift of the Ford. Distant route marking proved to be a problem for many teams, with third-placed special vehicle crew Clint Gibson and Mike Brown struggling to find the correct route in their Presidium Financial Services bat. The same problem befell Mark Cronier and Chris Birkin in the Castrol Toyota Hilux 2.7i, and they were in danger of losing the Class E lead. The Class D battle was intense, with leaders Labuskaghni and Gerber fighting it out with the Weichhelds, who took advantage of the GBS Racing pair's wrong slot to grab the Class D lead. Class A championship leaders Mundell and Bond also made up a place at the expense of the Nissan pair. Labuskaghni and Gerber were now second in Class D and had teammates Grobler and Prinsloo closing in on them. Manfred Schroeder and Jack Peckham took advantage of Cronier and Birkin getting lost and were the new Class E leaders in the Team Ford Racing Ranger. Veterans Henry Costain and Renier Jooster started 31st after picking up problems with the ex-Clint Gibson Class B Atlas Copco bat and were running in the top 3 in Class B. Husband and wife Gerrit and Kirby du Plessis started 38th after problems in the prologue and were handily placed in Class A after a storming drive through the field. And so too were Stratford Vogt and Richard Carolyn in the Atlas Copco Chicago pneumatic Jeep, who started 16th but then ended up last when a pin holding the brake pads on the rear brake caliper sheared. They spent 30 minutes repairing the damage and were now on a charge back up the leaderboard. Talking of leaderboards, there was in fact a new leader. Reyneke and Houghton had got by the leading pack when they wrong slotted, and the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser was running at the head of the field for the first time this year. Force and Griffith was second in the proudly South African Nissan Hardbody and were closely followed by Neil Woolridge and Ken Scholthammer in the Team Ford Racing Ranger. Where was Grobler? There had also been a change at the top of the special vehicle category leaderboard. Corbett and Moore were the new leaders in the Century Property Development's bat and were being chased by Grobler and Leek, who had in fact picked up a puncture. Gibson and Brown were second in the special vehicle category and had quickly got to grips with the awesome power of the Audi V8 motor fitted to the bat. Gerald Mundell and Billy Bond were now third in the roofless Prolong bat and within sight of Clint Gibson and Mike Brown. Manfred Schroeder and Jack Peckham would hold the Class E lead for over 100 kilometers before getting the Team Ford Racing Ranger stuck in a ditch. Class E championship leaders Mark Cronje and Chris Birkin were second in the Castrol Toyota Hilux 2.7i and concentrating hard on not making any mistakes that could jeopardize their championship position. Teammates Kasi Kutsia and Oki Fourie maintained a steady pace and were a handy buffer between Cronje and a horde of Class D crews that were going all out to finish ahead of the Rotax Max Karting World Champion. Cliff and Louis Weichelt led Class D, which meant that Toyota now had the lead in every one of the production vehicle classes. Hein Grobler and Gerard Prinsloo had managed to get past teammates Labus Kachny and Gerber and were second in Class D. Marcus Taylor and Mark de Chalane were in total control of Class B and 5 minutes ahead of Special Vehicle Championship leader Gil Nel in the Look Africa Truggy and fourth overall in the Special Vehicle category. De Chalane had already clinched the Class B Co-Drivers Championship before the Toyota Dealer 400. The Van der Merwe father and son crew had a relatively trouble-free run and were third in Class D in the Shivani Colt Rodeo. Gil Nel was as consistent as ever in the second-placed Class B Look Africa Truggy and was closely followed by Class B rival Ernst Corbett and Warwick Goosen in the Century Property Development's bat. Comeback kid Nardus Alberts and Colin Hunter were the lone entrants in Class S, and their only complaint was the number of punctures they picked up. A new leader in the special vehicle category. Clint Gibson and Mike Brown had got past Corbett and Moore 10 kilometers into the start of the second loop and were opening a steady gap on the chasing pack. Just listen to the sweet sound of that Audi V8 motor. Mark Corbett and Johan Moore were second in the Audi V8-powered Century Property Development's bat. In what was turning out to be a bat benefit, Gerald Mundell and Billy Bond were third overall and in Class A in the Nissan V6-powered Prolong bat. Taylor and de Chalane still led Class B, but they got stuck in a mud hole and broke reverse gear. Arch rival Andrew Birkin was the only competitor to help them out of the mud hole, but by then the gearbox had cried enough.
As well. It's a nice lead.
Kirstein and Jooste in the Atlas Copco bat were quick to take advantage of Dani Marais and Andrew Utterson's misfortune.
Yeah, it's going well.
Very
It's just
good.
we get stuck behind the buttons. I mean, we were stuck behind and they don't move over. Yeah, they hold you up a very, very long time.
Early race leaders Berthold and Harkus had got stuck in a deep hole after getting lost on the first section, which cost them 40 minutes and the lead. Hannes Grobler and Richard Leek had regained the lead in the proudly South African Nissan hardbody and bypassed the designated service point at Badfontein. Neil Woolridge and Ken Scholthammer had also led at one stage but were coming in for an unscheduled pit stop. A long-range fuel tank meant that Foss and Griffith didn't have to stop in the pits, but not so the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser of Reineke and Houghton, which needed a top-up of fuel. The fact that Woolridge had removed his helmet meant the race was over for the former champion.
As the years progressed, the Ford it's closed and closed and closed on the Nissan. We've seen in the last two races, we've been right up there, but in the last race we lost a battery 30 k's from the end. And this race we didn't have the best of time trials, but in the dust held us up badly, and Hannes got away a little bit, and then we just closed and got past both the Nissans and pulled out quite a nice gap, and Hannes and I were just going and at a nice pace, not really going mad at all, and it looks like we've broken the back diff, so the bad luck just continues. I think roll on January the 1st and a whole new start, and we start again. It hasn't been the greatest of years, but it's nice to know that the development that we're doing on the car is progressing all the time. It's getting better and better, and I think with the rule changes for next year and a couple of tricks we've got up our sleeve, I'm hoping we'll be one step ahead of the Nissans instead of one step behind at the moment.
A polished performance saw Gibson and Brown maintain their lead in the special vehicle category.
Yeah, very, quite fast. A lot of areas that are very badly marked, very ambiguous. A lot of guys getting lost. The track is good, but yeah, like I said, the marking could be worked on.
Mandel and Bond had moved into second place ahead of Corbett and Moore. Barring any unforeseen problems, there was just no stopping Grobler and Leek as they headed for another overall victory in the proudly South African Nissan hardbody. Force and Griffith were now riding shotgun to make sure that there were as many finishes as possible between their teammates and production vehicle championship contenders Cronje and Birkin, while Reineke and Houghton wanted nothing more than to grab the lead away from the Nissan pair. Mark Cronje and Chris Birkin were back in control of Class E and were a fine 4th overall in the Castrol Toyota Hilux 2.7i, and not to be quite outdone, Kasi Kutsia and Okefuri had moved into 2nd place in Class E and were 5th overall in the Hilux KZTE. Cliff and Louis Weichelt were 6th overall and the Class D leaders in the N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser after Hein Grobler broke a torsion bar on the GBS Racing Nissan. Manfred Schroeder and Jack Peckham followed them closely in the 7th placed Class E Team Ford Racing Ranger. Perseverance paid off for Johan and Martinez van der Merwe, who were 2nd in Class D. An encounter with a big bump late in the race caused the Colt's windscreen to shatter and the roof support to break off. Marius van Vuren and Chris Maria had moved up to 3rd in Class D in the Almirante Autospray Land Rover and were on their way to their 3rd finish of the season. Their teammates, brothers Mark and Stuart Moffat, would eventually finish 23rd in the McCarthy Land Rover and also pick up their 3rd finish of the year. The surviving crews were now in the home stretch and, as has come to be expected, a proud